Hey guys, welcome back. It is your favorite Gimp with a Limp, and I do mean welcome back. I know it has been a while since you guys have seen me actually filming a game because of the new baby. I do appreciate all the well wishes for the family. Everyone's doing well. Baby's growing nicely. She's putting on a little bit of weight. I might put a picture up in the corner because I'm a proud daddy. I can't help it. It is what it is. But I'm jumping back into it with a game I know a lot of you are excited to see. It is one I am definitely happy to have here on the table. It is a Kickstarter that arrived right there before the baby was born, and it is called Age of Dogfights WW1, and it is by Forsage. I hope I'm saying that right. Forsage Games. Now, like I said, this game is a Kickstarter, and this company has run other Kickstarters. They had that game Tank Chess, which I'm a little perturbed that I didn't get that. Unfortunately, I wanted to get that one, and I think I didn't have the money at the time, something along those lines. But I am going to be looking into possibly getting that one down the road because I have enjoyed this so far. But this first video is going to be what I usually do, where I kind of give an overview of the game, the components, how it's played, all that type stuff. And then I'm going to have some follow-on videos where we play through this little scenario that I've got set up here. All right, so obviously if you are unfamiliar with this game, it is a aerial combat game set in World War I, where you have your biplanes and triplanes and all those original airframes, real cool stuff. Fighting, back when they first started, they were shooting rifles and pistols at each other, and then they ended up starting to mount machine guns. So the real early stages of aerial warfare, and they have an interesting way of movement onto the board. That's what this triangle system is. It's either big hexes or triangles, and they call it their triangle system. But I like the way this is set up. It allows for some interesting maneuvers with the aircraft, and the game is set up in such a way that you can play it as easy or as advanced as you want to. So if you had a younger kid you might be playing with and you just want to have an easy level, there is an easy version of this game where you can play all the aircraft stay at the same level and you don't have to worry about advanced maneuvers, things like that. But again, if you want something high end, you can go that route as well. Now, when it comes to the components, there is a lot going on here with the components. Obviously, we've got our basic rule book. It's a rule book. Yeah, you've seen one, you've seen them all. Fairly nice, colored, nice examples, easy to read. So as far as the rule book goes, they hit that pretty well. There is a little additional rule book for the solitaire rules, and we're going to touch on that when we play because I am going to play this solitaire. And the solo rules are they're not bad, but they're pretty much what you would expect if you're playing heads up. And you guys will see that. There's not a whole lot of rolling to decide what the solitaire planes do. Although I will say I like the inclusion of a random solitaire die. That is a good choice. Now we do have a couple of player aids here. There's a tiny little player aid that has just the results for firing, but there's a smaller version of it here on our main player aid. And this is the basic just breakdown of the game, which I like that they have included this because when it comes to firing in the game, you're either going to be on the A side or the B side when you're performing your attacks. If you're in a better position, you get the A column. Worse position, you get the B column. And this kind of breaks that down just a little bit to help you understand which ones get A and which ones get B. Like they included that. And then on the back side, it summarizes the rule book a little bit more. Gets more into the aircraft movement, and then some of the advanced aerobatic stuff that you can do, like Immelmans, split S's, wing overs, inside loops, all that type stuff you can have in this game if you want to have those advanced maneuvers into it. I do like that they have that included. And then this one gives us a little breakdown of all the aircraft that are included in the game and the basics of their stats, right? So what type of weapons they have, if they can do recon, if they have bombs, their points, which I think it is nice that they have points in this game. That's what all these numbers on the far right side are. And the points aren't, a great large scale because most of the aircraft are fairly similar. Their maneuverability and everything isn't dramatically different. Now, of course, a fighter is going to move better than a bomber, but you're talking about maybe 2 turns versus 3 or 4 turns, or, I'm talking about turning on the board, or, speed 4 versus speed 6, not huge differences, but obviously something is going to make a difference here in the game. Now, there are a whole lot of other plastic components, little pieces that we're going to get into a little bit later on when we start showing some of the game, like little pieces here that designate areas that you can bomb or photograph for recon. And then there's our little plastic stands over here. These are the flight stands, and I've got them all laid out here so I can have them easy to keep track of, because aircraft, again, can change their altitude. So you're going to be switching between smaller ones, level 1, all the way up. None of these aircraft that I've selected for this match go above a ceiling of 5, so I only laid out 5, but they do have up to 6. Some aircraft do go up to altitude 6 in this game, so you can just line those up as many as you need. But there are plenty that come with it, and I do like the fact that they have storage boxes for each of them, odds and evens here to keep track of it, but it makes it nice and easy to keep track of all of your pieces and then hold on to them. So that brings us to our main components, which are obviously going to be the planes. And again, they did include something nice to keep track of our planes. These nice, cute little boxes. We got our French planes, our British planes, and our German planes. And when I say the planes, I mean these little hexagonal plastic pieces that go on the top. We're going to get into the stats and what all those represent, but you've got a little box here. I don't have any French planes in this setup. It's just British and German. So this box is full of the French planes. So you can see how many they come with. I don't know, it's 25 or so, maybe 30, somewhere around there. Yeah, it's got to be in the 20s, because I think there's like 70 total, maybe somewhere around there. But we do have the 3 factions. Unfortunately, I did not get the expansion pack for this game. I am going to be looking into possibly picking that up later, because they are going to go retail with these items. The base game itself and the expansion pack as well should be around the end of April. They're going to have it at retail. If you want to purchase it, you can go to their website at Forsage Games. I back this. I'm just letting you guys know. They're not sponsoring anything, so this is just me telling you guys. All right, so that's what our airplanes are kept in. And let me set that to the side. These little pieces, another box, they go quite nicely, I gotta say. I kind of like how they have this set up. And you guys will see this in the game, but let me pull one out to show you. They are the damage pieces, so you can keep track of if your aircraft has damage. And the damage is color-coded. So red, I think, is weapons. Blue, I think, is rudder, elevators, steering component type stuff. Forget what yellow is. Maybe the frame. I think green is engine. I'd have to look it up. But whatever damage you have, it might either take out your weapons or make you reduce your speed. Something along those lines, but you can set this right on your aircraft, if I can get it on there with one hand, like so. That way you can easily tell whether or not an aircraft is damaged and what type of damage it has simply by looking at it, like that. Now, a lot of your pieces are going to be made out of this type of material, this light, thin, bendable plastic. There are clouds that are in the game as well, made out of a very similar material. And some of the other pieces to denote things like pilot skill level, if you want to include that in the game, little round disc made out of plastic as well. All right, so I got a couple of plane pieces over here. We'll show you guys some of the different types. This one is a Scout. Now, when you're looking at this, obviously you got the picture of the aircraft. There at the nose, that little stick-looking thing, kind of penis-looking thing there at the front of it, is the machine guns. If you've got just one, that means you've got a single machine gun. Or if you have two, like this fella does here, that means you have two machine guns. And you can have up to 3 machine guns. So if you have one, you're just rolling base. If you have 2, you get to add +1. If you have 3, you get to add +2. Real easy to understand. Obviously, some of them did have weapons at the rear if they had a backseat gunner or something along those lines. And that's what this icon here at the back represents. And the neat part about this is you see how it's got that little half circle with it? That denotes the fact that it can fire in an arc. So this can only go straight. So he's firing either through the propeller or fixed on the upper part of the wing, you know, wherever they had their machine guns. He could only fire forwards. Here, they can fire, as an example, let's say he's pointing this way, because that's where they're going to be, is on the circles. These 3 circles behind him is where that arc is. And it can be up and down, depending on what type of machine gun it is. We'll get into that later when we're playing the game. Come back up here. All right, so again, looking at our little stats, you see there's a set of numbers to the right. The 4, the Roman numeral 2, and the L5. The 4 is the speed, so that's your base movement. This will go a base of 4 points along the map each time it's moved, but there is dice rolling to kind of change that. You can either go faster or slower, depending on what you roll. We'll show that when we start playing the game. The Roman numeral 2 is how agile the plane is, how many turns it can make. So as it's flying along here, this one has a 2, so it can go 1, 2, and then that's it. So it can only turn 2 times. Now there are some advanced maneuvers that might change that up a little bit, but the base understanding is that Roman numeral is how many turns the aircraft can make when it's moving. The L5 is its ceiling, how high it can go. And they have a nice little sticker on these that you had to put on because we're getting ready to adjust the sticker thing with this. But all of the little plastic pieces do have stickers that can go on them to help designate what the altitude is. This one's level 4, so he could go up to 1 higher, but that is it. He cannot get up to the ceiling of 6. Now, I've got a couple other pieces. And you notice these are different shapes, all right? So the majority of your aircraft are going to be these hexagons. That's it. There are some that are like this, and you see it's an extra plastic piece. Let's see if I can get that really in the light so you guys can see it. It's harder when it's black. Let me grab this guy up. You guys can see there the extra plastic piece on top. Now that's kind of hit and miss. We'll touch on that right here. This is what was included for that double-sided tape, and that's kind of a no-go for me. And it's just because I don't think this tape works all that well. I mean, it worked. I attached one with it, and it seemed to hold all right. And I get it. They have to include something in the box to be able to attach these pieces, and what's the most cost-effective way they could include that. Obviously, it's going to be a little sheet of double-sided tape that they tear off and give to each person in their box to attach these extra pieces, because there are some that are shaped wonky like this for certain bombers, and then these others for wider aircraft. It's fine if it's your only option, go ahead and use it, I guess, but I would definitely recommend probably using CA glue instead, because these pieces are not coming off. They're meant to stay there, and that tape's going to wear thin, especially if you play this game a lot and you're pulling them in and out of the little boxes, moving them around the board. Tape's going to wear out. I would just go ahead and CA glue these on. Make sure you do it with something that works well with plastic. That way, they're on. You don't have to worry about it. That's going to hold perfectly well. All right, so to finish showing the difference, you can see these have the same type of stats. This is more of a bomber type aircraft. Easy way to tell that is the machine guns are a lighter gray instead of a black. So looking at this one, you can see those are a dark black. That means he can fire offensively. This light gray means this one can't. He can only shoot defensively. They call that a break action. You'll see it into the game, but basically he can react to other planes, but you're not going to fly this one in to go after someone. But they have the same type stats. This one does have slow descending, which means he can only drop 2 levels, 2 altitude levels in a single round. Other aircraft can drop up to 3. There are some other aircraft, I don't think I have one on the board right now, that have the whole rotary engine thing, which really neat. If you guys don't know about that from history, the first aircraft had rotary type, some of them had rotary type engines that, you know, spun the propeller in a specific way. But because of the way the engine was turning, it would turn a lot easier to the right than it would the left, or some of them left to the right. It depends on the aircraft. But they even put that into the game with certain planes that had it. So those specific planes will have that symbol, and you might lose one agility if you go left, but you gain one agility if you take all your turns to the right. Something like that. A neat little rule that they did include into the game. So we got this type of bomber, and then there's another type of bomber. You see it has a different shaped plastic piece. And the only other number that I have not addressed is that big number down to the bottom left. If I get focus in, this one's 26. That simply means that that's this plane's number. That's going to come into play when we are looking here at our dashboards, because this is how we're going to keep track of each of our individual planes, how much ammo they have. So you see here, these 3 scouts are listed here. So we've got 13, 14, 15, and then 13, 14, and 15 here on the edge of the board, ready to go in. All right, so before we address these dashboards here, I wanted to finish talking about these. And this is one of those parts that I don't like dinging people, but this is something that I went back and I looked at the Kickstarter. I've read it over it a couple of times just trying to see if I could find a spot where I missed that they said it was going to be this, and I missed it until the box arrived. But they did show it in some of the updates. I just wish it had been listed more clearly in the Kickstarter itself, and that's the fact that the aircraft themselves are stickers that you put onto the plastic pieces. Now, look, I get it. It's not that huge of a deal. There are plenty of war games, Command and Colors, and others that you have to put stickers on. I've done it before. I just wasn't anticipating with this. And that's something that you're going to have to keep in mind when it comes to this game, because there are a lot of aircraft, which means there are a lot of stickers. And it's not just the aircraft, it's the dice as well. You have to sticker up, and a few other pieces. All of the altitude stands, of which there are a lot, you got to put the little stickers on so you know what altitude they are without having to compare them around. So you got dice, altitude stands, all the plastic airplane pieces. The clouds have stickers to let you know what the altitude is for the clouds. And then there's actually some lettered stickers. I still don't know what the hell they go to. Haven't been able to find that out yet. So it is nice that the planes, they're black for German and white bases for the British and the French, so they're easier to tell apart. I just wasn't anticipating having to put all that time and effort into it. And looking at the picture, it shows, like in the Kickstarter, it was like 54 base planes, and I think there were extras that were unlocked through stretch goals. And it says 15 or 54 plastic plane pieces. Okay, well, the picture didn't really show that it was going to be stickers put on there. Now, a lot of people probably figured it out, and I'm just a dumbass and missed it. But I would have liked if they put in their sticker sheet or something like that that was going to be included. That way I just would have known. Everyone would have known. Even if you're a dumbass, you'll know it's going to be requiring stickering, because it takes a few hours to get that done. It's a little pain in the butt, especially when you got to break all the altitude pieces apart, get them all stickered. And I would advise, before you break them apart, sticker them first. And you don't have to sticker the level 1 ones because they're tiny as hell, so it's pretty easy to tell. But yeah, I definitely would have appreciated if they had let us know that it was going to be stickers beforehand. I think that was a ball dropped, if I may. So the game's good though, and you guys are going to be seeing that here soon. It's kind of like World War I X-Wing with all the neat stuff that you can do with the game, so I'm not going to hate on them too much for it. I just think they could have done a little better on that. And something else that confused me is these pieces came out as plastic, but one of the stretch goals was to have them be wood. So it showed them as red and green in it. And let's see, it's like the big ones were red and these little ones were green. I believe. So these were supposed to be green wooden cubes, and these were supposed to be red wooden cubes. And instead, it came with all gray cubes. So in the grand scheme of things, it's not a big deal. It's really not going to detract from your enjoyment of the game one way or the other. Just a little mishap there. And I'm thinking a lot of this comes down to cost savings, obviously, because I really do believe it's going to be 100% cheaper to get plastic cubes like this versus wooden ones. And I would rather them make that concession to make the game a reality than just not make the game at all. Obviously, and same with the stickers. So I'm not going to complain about it. It's just one of those little niggles. And there's probably an update that said such, and I just missed it with everything I've got going on with babies being born and all the other crap, and not able to pay attention to it. So I'm not going to ding on them too much, but it's one of those things that I would have liked seeing. And if they did put out an update saying that this change had been made, then that's just on me. Now, back to the player boards. This, like I said, is where you keep track of your planes, and it lists down each one of your individual planes, so you can keep track of it, like 13. Okay, 13 is here. This one is a scout plane, so if it is taking pictures, you can denote it here. If it has the ability to carry bombs, you can put those here. There are tokens for them. You can see I've got some tokens set right here on this bomber, ready to go. And these are ammo counters. So they have so many rounds, so much belts of ammunition they carry with them. And as you fire, you're going to move this down. If you have a jam, you turn it sideways to denote that it's jammed until they get it unjammed. And that's one of the things that you can roll. But it can run out, and when you run out, you don't have any more to shoot. Plus, they have front and back. So you see these scouts have front and rear weapons. So you have to keep track. Are you firing your front or your rear guns, and run the ammo down on those. There is something in the rule book that it talked about at the very tail end of it about maybe overtime if the game had run its course and you restart it up if it's a close game or something, and have them come back in with ammo. I was kind of thinking of a house rule where if you take your plane and fly it off back into your starting area and then bring it back on, you could say that, hey, it rearmed during that period of time. Maybe not repair the damage, but if it is damaged, but get the ammo back. So they landed, they rearmed up and then flew back in, something like that. And that's up to you guys. If you want to house rule it that way, it's your game, feel free to do so. I'm going to play with it, just see how it plays out. If I find that they run out of ammo too quick and I'm constantly kind of ending matches just because planes are running out of ammo, I know that's more thematic, realistic. It's up to you. I might have them fly off and come back on, keep shooting. I always like to throw the dice. Now, this one up here, these are fighter aircraft, and you notice it's a little bit different. They have a lot more ammo to keep track of. Theirs is all frontward facing, but they have this. And this designates going full throttle. So when you look up here, you see the blue and green circle next to their speed. And you see this one's speed 4, but it's only got a blue circle. That's where these dice come into play. And I mentioned earlier about rolling your dice for your speed. So when your aircraft's moving, again, we have these with a base speed of 4. They can only roll the blue one. So they roll the blue, they get a +1, so he'd move 5. Well, this green die goes up a lot higher. I think +5 is the the max that's on this. So you can take and spend some of your points here, stressing your engine out, I guess using fuel, whatever you want to call it, and have that burst of speed to get a little bit of a bonus. So if you've got a fighter that goes pretty fast, these fighters have a speed of 6, and then you roll a 5 on top of it, well, suddenly you've got 11 movement points, and you can scream across the board, get in your opponent's face before they even expect it. So you're going to keep track of that as well when you're ticking it down. And then down here at the question mark point, that does come into play later because you can potentially overstress your engine and damage it. So for our Germans, we have the Albatross DV, agility of 3. They've got the blue and the greens. Service ceiling is 5. Firepower is 2 fixed. It is aerobatic, which means it can do the special maneuvers that I was talking about earlier. And it is also slow descending, and you see it is a 6.5. For their scouts, it is the, I'm going to butcher that, a Vedic DFW, CV, speed 4, 2 agility, so not as maneuverable. The scouts are kind of like poor man's fighters, depending on what scout you're using. They can operate as a fighter, but they're not as fast, they're not as maneuverable, that type thing. But a lot of them do have rear gunners, which the fighters don't, so that can come in handy. So that's our German forces. And this isn't a scenario that's in the booklet. This is just one I threw together to play for you guys. For the British, I decided to go with something a little bit different. I've got, what is this called? The SE5, and it's a speed 7, so a little bit faster. It can also do the blue and green. Agility 3, so it's not as agile. Ceiling is 5 and 2 fixed. So very similar to the fighter for the Germans. This one's just a touch faster, but a little bit less agile. They've also got a couple of scouts. The Whitworth, FK8, speed 4, agility 2. Ceiling on these guys is only 4, so they can't go as high, but they do have front and rear guns. And then I have 1 bomber. So there's only 2 scouts and 1 bomber that I added in here. The Handley Page 0400. No idea what these things are. Speed 4, also just blue circle. Agility 2, non-sequential. It is listed that way because it can make 2 turns, and that's this aircraft here, but it can't make them back to back. Every other aircraft can turn at the same time. So if it turns 1, it can move forward and then turn again if it wanted to. This fella can't. He's got to go a couple of spaces and then turn. So a lot slower turning radius on this guy. He's the bomber for him, and he has fairly decent firepower. Let me tilt that down a bit for you. A couple of forward-firing guns, a couple of rear-firing guns, and a ventral machine gun, which means he can fire underneath him and to the sides. So he can fire basically all 6 spaces behind him. We kind of got to think in our heads about this. So these 3 spaces behind him, if he is at, what level is he at? 3 right now. He could fire defensively, because these are light gray, behind him at the same level that he is in, and at level 2 altitude behind him, because he has ventral and dorsal machine guns. So he's got machine guns all over him, but they're all defensive. So he can't go flying in and start tossing out the lead, but as the fighters come in on him, then he can toss out the lead on top of them. And you see that has to be kept track of as well. Forward firing, rear firing, the horizontal one, and then the ventral, the lower firing machine gun. Only one of those, but hey, it's still there. 3 rounds for each of them. And plus, obviously, our bombs, and that is what these designate. I'm saying, hey, that's the German base, so their airfield or whatever. Thought I'd do it a little different, kind of stagger them. So as the plane comes in, it has to fly across a couple of spaces and try to drop some bombs in that area. Now, I know I've talked a lot in this. It's been a big overview. Oh, and I forgot to mention, it comes with 3 player boards. So that's what you guys see here. You see the little cracks in between them. So it's 1, 2, 3 boards. They fold. And it is blue on the other side, if I can pick it up and show you guys. So double-sided, very nice if you want to have an ocean battle, which they did include some like plastic stand pieces. There's same material this film type stuff is, and it's in the shape of ships. So if you wanted to have a mission where they're going out and trying to photograph enemy shipping or even bombing enemy shipping, you can do that too. I like the inclusion of that in the game. All right, so like I said, that's the overview of the game. It is an I go, you go system. One side's going to move all their aircraft, do their offensive firing. The other side's going to go do their movements and then their offensive firing. In between that, though, you can have defensive firing. Like I said, they call it a break action, where while the opponent's doing their thing, if one of their planes is in a position for a defensive fire shot to occur, then you can do a break action and perform your own attack at that point. So what we're going to do is we're going to play through this little scenario that I have set up here. The way they listed down in the rules is that you bring 4 aircraft on, and that's what these starting areas are here. So they're coming in from off the map. So I've got a couple of them. One patrol recon aircraft here, one fighter here that are back. So these first 4, a couple of recon planes, a couple of fighters are going to come in. And then for our British forces, they're going to have a couple of fighters up over there. And then I haven't decided down here yet. Should I send in the 2 scouts first and then hold the bomber back? That's probably what I'm going to do. Or maybe go ahead and send in the bomber so he can try to scream in. But I think I'm going to wait and have the bomber come in on the next round. Now, you can take and have as many aircraft as you want. There are plenty of scenarios in the booklet as well if you want to pick through pre-made ones, or like myself where you just like creating it. I do like the inclusion of the points, so you can try to have the sides be as even as possible, or you can stack one side out. Now, they do recommend if you play solitaire to have more aircraft on the opposing side, because the AI does need some type of an advantage. For this first scenario that I am filming for you guys, though, I'm going to have it be relatively even sides. It's just one's trying to bomb, the other sees them coming in trying to bomb, and they're going to try to take them out. The only difference is this side has 1 extra scout, and this side has a bomber instead of a scout. Other than that, it's relatively even, so you guys can see how it plays out. But I did want you to see some of the bigger aircraft like the bomber in it in some of these special missions. So you guys stay tuned for that. I am definitely looking forward to filming the action of this game. It is fun. I have poked around with it off camera. It's like 3D chess in a way, to kind of think about it. You're trying to maneuver your pieces into just the right position, but you can't just think of, trying to get your shot off, because you have to think, where is my opponent on the board right now? How fast is my opponent? At what altitude is my opponent? What direction is he pointing? Because they can be pointing going up, level, or going down. So all those factors have to matter on where your opponent's going to end up on their next turn. So there's a whole lot that you have to really keep track of. That's why I said it really reminds me of X-Wing, because that play is very similar. It does not have initiative type system, though, that X-Wing does. So like I said, it is I go, you go. One side's going to do all thing, the other thing besides the defensive firing. So you don't have that to worry about, but with the multiple different levels of altitude, that's really going to be a mind cluster to try to keep track of, because you have to estimate, where is he, how fast can he descend, or how fast can he raise versus where you're at. Can you get into the right position? Because you can't just fire just because you got in the ballpark. You have to be in a certain position to fire, especially if you're firing fixed guns. So you guys will see that when we start playing here very soon. I hope to start filming that probably tomorrow and have it up quickly, because I am definitely looking forward to filming this for you all. Anyway, feel free to put your questions down below about the game, and I will try to answer it in the upcoming videos. You guys take care. I will catch you in the next one.